back of Sibo. Now,
Yeah, it's working.
Can we all remain standing for a moment of silent prayer and meditation? Thank you. We may all be seated. Good morning, colleagues. Let me take this opportunity to greet our Honorable Premier, members of the Executive Council, Chief Whip, leaders of political parties, members of the Provincial Legislature, the team from the Office of the Premier, the team from the Office of from Gauteng Provincial Legislature, ladies and gentlemen, the people of Gauteng, you are all welcome. We have received the following apologies.
Ozohleka, G.
We have received the following apologies: Honorable Koma, Honorable Mabala, who had to attend to a family emergency. Honorable Mnisi, who is not well, who's not well, and we wish her a speedy recovery. These are the only apologies that we have received as an office. And before we can continue, there's a member that needs to be sworn in this morning. And from the
Madam
Democratic
Speaker.
Alliance, we have received a resignation from Honorable Engelbrecht, who is now going to NCOP, and a new member is coming in. Can we request Honorable Moriarty to usher the new member in?
There may be a delay, Madam Speaker. I'll just see if he's up from Committee Room C, but I'll just go and check. Thank you.
The member is late. There's no delay.
Okay, in the meantime, I think continue with the announcement. The Office of the Inter-Commissioner has distributed the declaration of interest forms to all members, and the deadline for submission is the 23rd of March, which is 2 weeks from now. Members are all encouraged to seek one-on-one support from the Office of the IC in relation to completing of the forms. Do we have any announcements from any other member? Okay, from the members who are joining virtually, I can't see anything. Okay. I see the new member is here before we allow announcements. Okay. We thank you. I see the members from the Western are excited to see you in. We are having Mr. Yvette. Members, please. Yvette Philippas Duplessis, and he's going to do an oath in Afrikaans. And unfortunately, I don't speak Savor Afrikaans, but I'm going to speak to him in English and he can respond in Afrikaans. Mr. Duplessis, do you understand the purpose of the oath of office? I'm told that you're going to do an oath. Thank you. I'm going to ask you to take the form there and read it. And when you are done, you just lift your right hand and you say, "So help me God."
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Can I proceed?
Can you take off so that we can hear you?
Okay. Ek, Ewert Philippus Du Plessis, sweer dat ek getrou sal wees aan die Republiek van Suid-Afrika en die grondwet en elke ander wet van die Republiek sal gehoorsaam, eerbiedig en handhaaf. En ek beloof plegtig om my werk as 'n lid van die wetgewer van die provinsie van Gauteng na die beste van my vermoë te voer. So help me God.
Thank you very much. I therefore wish to officially declare you as a member of the Gauteng Provincial Legislature, and we wish you all the best. To your office, they will They will therefore finalize everything, your details and everything, your ID. And
Thank you very much. I just want to thank you. Thank you very much.
thank you very much. I was checking whether are there any members who wants to make announcements? No announcements. MEC statements in terms of Rule 79, subsection 1, there is none. Member statement in terms of Rule 81, subsection 1. Honorable Hassan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. 5 years ago, I stood at Wits University with thousands of others in the fight for free, quality, and decolonized education. Yesterday, again, I stood at Wits for the same fight, except this time it was our worst nightmare. An innocent human being was killed by the police. He was shot and bled out in the streets of Braamfontein as students watched on helplessly. We are outraged and heartbroken, and I would like to extend our condolences to the family of the deceased and to a family who is unnecessarily a husband, father, and a breadwinner. Police brutality in this country goes on unabated. Too many have died at the hands of the police force, and we cannot pretend that it is okay, and we cannot pretend it is business as usual. The students and young people who elected me and fundamentally contributed to putting me in this seat are languishing. Students are being brutalized in broad daylight, on their knees and with their hands up. I cannot and will not be silent in the face of such injustices. We will continue to fight until there is fundamental change, and we will realize free, quality, and decolonized education. Fees must fall.
Think yourself, it's a government that is doing that, that is killing students.
Honorable
And
Hoffman.
you betray those students.
Honorable Hoffman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Speaker, revelations that organised crime has infiltrated the ranks of South African police service is not surprising and was only a matter of time given decades of dismal ANC governments. Various studies globally all conclude that the development of organised crime is related as much to the effectiveness of policing as to the institutional strength of the state. As the state weakens over time, it becomes more likely that organised crime will form parallel and competing points of power. The September 2020 assassination of SAP's Lieutenant Colonel Charles Kinnear highlights the extent and strength of organised crimes infiltrating into SAPs. Kinnear, a section head of an anti-gang unit, was close to cracking the case of a gun license scandal involving senior SAPS officers and the criminal underworld. The assassination sheds light on why SAPS armories have been steadily leaking weapons. With a lack of accountability, poor implementation of policy, and chaotic administration for all to see, organised crime's infiltration into SAPS has been straightforward. The infiltration is not only about corrupt officers colluding with criminals or operating on the orders of gang leaders, but gangs sending their own sleeper agents to join the ranks of the SAPS. If one example attests to this point, the SAPS cannot do and plan a drug operation without SAPS members tipping these criminals off. The poor state of SAPS corresponds with their inability to seriously challenge crime. Though South Africa spent the larger part of 2020 in a security lockdown with over 190 roadblocks and 680 vehicles nationwide, crime was not deterred. In fact, One study reported that lockdown restrictions have given corrupt officers greater leeway to smuggle drugs and guns without oversight. In the last 3 months of 2020, contact crimes like murder, assault, rape, and sexual violations increased. SAPs in Gauteng have been captured by incompetence and corruption. I thank you.
Honorable Masugu.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Premier, members of the Executive Council, Chief Whip of the Majority Party, members of the Provincial Legislature. Friday, the 5th of March, will mark exactly 1 year since the first case of coronavirus was reported in South Africa and will later be treated in our very own province at Charlotte Maxeke. As members of this legislature, it's important for us to make an important moment, to take an important moment to reflect on the journey we have traveled as a province, but more importantly, to thank the many brave men and women who have been in the front line of this pandemic. Gauteng, which has the highest population in the country, was ordinarily expected to also have the highest number of cumulative infections, which was at the last night stood at this figure of around 40,000. Impressingly, however, is how Gauteng also have the highest amount of recoveries and lesser death rates than provinces such as Western Cape, who are only 1/3 of Gauteng population. It is through the skill and planning and dedication and hard work of many healthcare workers and frontline personnel that we are confronting this pandemic as well as we are thus far. As moved to decommission the Nasrec facility, we need to take a special moment to thank all the healthcare workers who actually volunteered and sacrificed themselves to be part of the facility to make sure that they take care of those who are affected. These are men and women who sacrificed their families, that they stood and served the people of Gauteng. There is a Dr. Naidu, who was the CEO of the facility. There is Sister Gugusibia, who was the head of the nursing unit. These are the heroes and heroines that we need to celebrate. As we take this situation of the closure of Nasrec, it's important that we thank all the other healthcare workers who responded, raising their hands up, said that Tumamina. Let us not tire and be dispersed and despair. Hasta la victoria simply.
And we thank the one who is no longer the
victory.
MEC.
I thank you.
As to why he's still a member of the legislature, I don't know.
Honorable Moriarty.
Madam Speaker, during debates of SOPA and the motion of no confidence, Honourable Bones Modise made false allegations against Honourable Solium Simanga. He was supported by members of the ANC who heckled various insults and vile accusations. This behaviour was founded on previous allegations of gender-based violence against Honourable Simanga that had been brought by former member Nkele Mulapo. For the record, the conduct of Honourable Simanga was fully investigated by the SAPS, and he was cleared of all wrongdoing. Indeed, it has been declared that he has no case to answer. This matter has been closed, and it is a matter of written record, and I have the written confirmation. Moreover, the prosecuting authority has advised that a civil case will be pursued against the accuser. The DA wishes to make it clear, we stand against gender-based violence. It is a scourge against our society, especially against women and children, but we are also firm on the principle of innocent until proven guilty. We take the matter of false allegations extremely seriously. We hold the view that false allegations are an attack on the character of the one being accused. Even worse, it actually undermines the fight against gender-based violence. Those real victims of true cases fail to get full prosecution and justice because of the doubt created by the false outrage of people like Honourable Modise. False accusations block up the system as resources are spent on a process that only ends up in acquittal. Madam Speaker, what has happened in this House is an abuse of parliamentary privilege and rank opportunism. We're not impressed by Honourable Modise's poor acting skills. He himself doesn't believe the allegations he raises. If he is truly outraged, there are channels he can use in terms of members' ethics. He should use them and follow the process. But he doesn't, because what he wants to do is to deflect attention away from the ANC's problems of incompetence, corruption, scandals, and division. Thank you.
Honorable Masaka.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Saturday night last week, a teenage girl, age 15, shot and killed the alleged rapist in Wedella in the West Rand. According to police, the man had taken the teenager to an open field at gunpoint where he proceeded to rape her, and subsequently the girl killed her. This, Madam Speaker, speaks to the plight of women and children in various communities of this country where their lives are not valued by the perpetrators of gender-based violence. This further illustrates the extent to which perpetrators of violence against women and children are bold and fearless in their actions. The GGT 2030 is clear on the Gauteng we want, amongst others, that everyone should feel safe and walk in the street at any time, including women, children, and LGBTQI+ communities, and building safer communities through combating gender-based violence and upscale crime prevention through the provision of prevention programs to vulnerable groups, psychosocial support to victims of crime and children, and action programs to children in conflict with the law. No child of 15-year-old, Madam Speaker, should ever go through the trauma that this young girl had to endure. No child must ever be forced to defend herself against rape and any other form of abuse. We therefore call upon the ANC-led government to intensify the implementation of the GGT 2030 of a safer Gauteng that we want. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Ghana.
Thanks very much, Madam Speaker, honorable members. On Tuesday, Statistics South Africa released the 2020 GDP figures for the country, which confirmed what we have known for some time. We are in an economic slide. The economy of the country contracted by 7%. In a layman's language, we are at the same level we were in 2012. Things are not showing signs of improving, especially with an ANC government that prioritizes stealing and maladministration. What we are seeing is that the population, especially in Gauteng, is growing faster than the economy. More people live in poverty today than they were in 2012. Under normal circumstances, we will see a government rolling up its sleeves to get the economy going again. Unfortunately for us in Gauteng, we have a government that is just strolling along as if nothing has happened or nothing is happening. It is business as usual in this province. People continue to steal the money that's meant for development, and there are no real consequences. For us in Gauteng, we need to start imagining a future without the ANC government. They've had their chance and they blew it. Poverty and unemployment has been urbanized in this province. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Honorable De Khamela.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The ANC Gauteng notes with regret the deliberate and desperate publicity-seeking attempts by the DA to cause unnecessary public panic within the community of Tshwane. On the 8th of March 2021, the DA-led city of Tshwane issued a public statement on the seizing of the city of Tshwane emergency services, in which they shared their ill-informed opinion that their extension for license of EMS services under the province is still pending, and that currently The city does not have a valid operating license as per the National Emergency Medical Services Regulations. Madam Speaker, the African National Congress Gauteng condemns in the strongest possible terms the shameful conduct by the DA-led city of Tshwane for deliberately misleading the people. In an attempt to score cheap political points, the city sent a message that alleges that provincial ambulance services in Tshwane have been discontinued. As the ANC would like to categorically state that the DA message is nothing but a load of opportunistic falsehood which must be rejected with the highest contempt it deserves. The Gauteng Department of Health, particularly the Gauteng EMS in that city, has 222 ambulances and 536 other EMS vehicles allocated in 11 EMS stations in region 1 up to 7 around that city. Gauteng EMS currently fields an average of 12,500 calls monthly in the city of Tshwane municipality alone. We would like to clear another sensationalistic lie by the DA that Tshwane residents will suffer delay as the city's emergency call center will be relaying calls to the Provincial Emergency Medical Services Call Center for processing. No service will be interrupted and was never interrupted, and no calls will be delayed. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
That concludes the section on member statement. We're now going to receive a motion without notice in terms of Rule 120, read with Rule 121. Honorable Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Good morning, honorable members. I, Member M. Kumalo, Chief Whip, hereby table the following motion in terms of Rule 121, read together with Rule 117 as follows. Noting that the Gauteng Provincial Third Adjustment Appropriation Bill G002-2021 was not programmed for today's sitting of Thursday, the 11th of March 2021, and therefore request the House resolves to add the Gauteng Provincial Third Adjustment Appropriation Bill G002-2021 to this sitting of today, Thursday, the 11th of March 2021. I so move.
Any seconder to the motion?
I rise to second.
Seconded. I now put a question. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those not in favor say no.
Yes, yes.
The ayes have it. The motion is adopted by the House. Can we therefore have the Secretary reading the first order?
Introduction of the Gauteng Provincial Appropriation Bill G001-2021 for the financial year 2021-2022.
Honorable MEC.
Madam Speaker, Deputy Speaker, Premier David Makura, fellow members of the Executive Council, Chief Whip, leaders of political parties, members of the Provincial Legislature, MMCs of Finance and councillors, representatives from the Auditor General's Office, senior officials of government and municipalities, representatives of business, organized labor and civil society, distinguished guests, comrades and friends. Madam Speaker, it is my honor and privilege to present to this House the second budget of the 6th administration as well as our medium-term projections for the next 3 years. Let me start by reflecting on two important international developments of significance that happened during this month. I must do this, Madam Speaker, because the history will never forgive me if I fail to recognize them in this budget speech. The first development was the historic appointment of Dr. Ngozi Okoja Iluela from Nigeria as the 7th Director General of the World Trade Organization. She became the first woman and first African to lead this multilateral trade body on the 1st of March. Dr. Ngozi, the former finance of Nigeria, took over the leadership role of the WTO at the time when this global trade club is in need of widespread reforms to address the challenges facing the world trading system. She hits the ground running and has begun working with the member countries to address the rise in protectionism that has been brought by the global outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, which is necessary to combat the spread of virus and open economic activity. As Gauteng, we welcome her appointment and wish her well as she implements key priorities that will improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the WTO for the benefit, in particular, developing countries like South Africa. Secondly, honorable members, this budget speech comes a few days after women and the people of the world commemorated the International Women's Day on the 8th of March. This is an important day that celebrates social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women. The day also marks a call of action for accelerating gender parity through 4 areas. The first one is celebrating women's achievements. The second one is raising awareness about women's equality. The third one is lobbying for accelerated gender parity. And the fourth, which is the last one, is fundraising for female-focused charities. The theme of this year's International Women's Day campaign was, I'll open quote, "Choose to challenge." As women of the world, we believe that a challenged world is an alert world, and from challenge comes change. Assessing the gender dynamics of COVID-19 globally, the World Bank found that in addition to health implications, the economic hardship of this pandemic has disproportionately affected women. Therefore, it is important that we acknowledge significant developments that are related to the ongoing struggle of gender equality and continue to work towards eradicating gender-based violence in this generation. Madam Speaker, last week Friday, which was the 5th of March, we marked exactly a year since we had the first confirmed positive case of COVID-19 on our shores. I still remember that day clearly. It was the day when I presented the 2020-2021 provincial budget to this House. When the news broke that our country recorded the first confirmed case of COVID-19, I reflected deeply on the essence of the budget I had presented earlier on. I then realized that our budget had suddenly become moot because it was not going to be able to respond adequately to the unfolding pandemic. A year later, Gauteng remains the epicenter of COVID-19 in South Africa, and our country has the most infectious from this virus in Africa. As a country, we have sadly lost more than 50,000 people to this virus. We convey our condolences to all those families who have lost their loved ones, and we pray for God to strengthen them in this difficult time. In the same breath, I want to salute unrelenting acts of bravery shown by healthcare workers and frontline workers in the face of great risk. They saved many lives. They worked long hours in the front lines while risking everything, and more particularly, the health of their families. Some of these heroes and heroines unfortunately succumbed to COVID-19 with their boots on, but their colleagues did not withdraw from the battle. For that, I, on behalf of the Gauteng Provincial Government, would like to thank you and salute you in your steadfastness in the face of unfolding deadly pandemic. You did not desert nor despair. The fight continues. Madam Speaker, Gauteng's economy, given its size and the centrality to the country's economy as a whole, has received the harshest beating arising from the onset of the pandemic a year ago. Gauteng, as the economic hub, has been seeing its gross domestic product by the region shrinking by about 80.9 billion from 1.1 trillion in 2019 to 1 trillion in 2020. Thus, too many people have lost their jobs. Businesses, especially SMMEs, have gone under, and unemployment is ravaging all our communities. But we're encouraged by the resilient spirit and resourcefulness nature that our people have demonstrated throughout this period. When the situation summoned all the century to pause for a measured response to the invisible enemy, We witnessed maximum unity across political parties, religious groupings, race, class, academia, scientists, and community members. All of us knew that to adequately respond to the reality that we faced, we need to work together. The moment testified to our time-tested story of proven courage and resilience in terms of crisis and calamity conjured by their nature and fate. At the same time, such moments continuously and without fail elevate our political, social, scientific, and academic prowess, which places us as a country to be a serious body of opinion in the arena of global theater of scholastic and valid ideas, tangible hope, as well as brilliance of policy and decisive action. This period was characterized by courage, rise, and hope, eloquently depicted by none other than Ben Okri, a Nigerian poet. In his passage, "Turn on your light," he wrote, open quote, "The most authentic thing about us is our capacity to create, to overcome, to endure, to transform, to love, and to be greater than our suffering, where we are best defined by mystery, that we are still here and can still rise upwards and still create better civilizations, that we can face our raw realities, and that we will survive the greater despair and the greater future that might bring, close quote. The spirit of resilience and hope drove us as a sub-national government when we crafted the reprioritized the 2020-2021 budget during a special budget adjustment to resource the Gauteng COVID-19 response plan and address the immediate socio-economic impact of the pandemic. In the spirit that is characterized by our engagements during the preparations of the 2021-2022 budget, that we have today, which continues to resource Gauteng COVID-19 response plan, focusing on our priority areas, namely defeating the COVID-19 pandemic, reigniting country's economy, recalibrating social policy, and improving governance. We are riding the crest wave of COVID-19 storm. Hard times still lie ahead, but this time we are armed with more scientific knowledge, lived experience, and data-driven as well as evidence-based and multi-layered interventions. We have also started the rollout vaccine program, which adds to our optimism about clear path towards overcoming this pandemic. I therefore call on all stakeholders tasked with the responsibility of rolling out the vaccine to continue to do this effectively, efficiently, inoculate our people, and this vaccine is key to stabilizing infections in society, allowing for full opening up of the economy, in which in turn is important to an improvement in both business and consumer confidence and job creation. Honorable members, the global economy remains weak as a result of the outbreak of COVID-19 and subsequent lockdowns implemented in many countries to contain the spread of virus. There was a rebound in the economic activity in the second half of last year, when these restrictions were lifted in most countries. But this rebound did not lead to these economies performing at pre-COVID-19 levels. It was also short-lived. Infections increased in these countries towards the end of last year, and governments reimposed lockdowns to slow the transmission of the virus. This protracted slow pace of economic activity led to the International Monetary Fund to estimate that global economy contracted by 3.5% in 2020. The rollout of the vaccine, particularly in industrialized countries, has brought some optimism for the 2020-2020 global economic growth outlook. In its January 2021 World Economic Update, the IMF forecasted that the global economy will rise by 5.5% in 2021. Although the projection is still subjected to high levels of uncertainty, it expects growth to moderate to 4.2% in 2022. However, there are still risks to this economic outlook, mainly driven by new infections and the new strains of virus, renewed lockdowns, and uncertainty around vaccine distribution, especially in less developed countries. As Finance Minister Tito Mboweni said during his national budget speech, South Africa's economy, which contracted by 7.2% last year, is expected to rebound by 3.3% this year. The average growth during the outer years will be 1.9%, and an indication that the COVID-19 pandemic aside, the economy is still grappling with structural impediments to growth. Gauteng contributes about 34% to the country's gross domestic product, making us not only the economic hub of South Africa, but indeed of Africa. COVID-19 severely affected the economy of this province at the height of lockdown restriction measures during the second quarter of the year. Gauteng GDPR contracted by 50.5% quarter on quarter one of an annualized rate by 17.6% on a yearly basis. Over 600,000 jobs during this quarter, accounting for the highest number of job losses in the country, and more people slipped deeper into poverty, widening the gap of inequality further. However, there is hope, because if the economy performance of the province continues at the current trajectory, our GDPR is expected to recover by 3.2% in 2021. Therefore, it stabilizes roughly at its long-term average of 1.9% between 2022 and 2024, mirroring the country's trend and further highlighting the structural impediments to growth. As Premier David Makhura said during the State of the Province address, Gauteng is leading in supporting President Cyril Ramaphosa's economic reconstruction and recovery plan. As we are confronted with this prospect of serious socio-economic and environmental catalysm, we are not sitting idly and helpless as doomsayers would peddle this false narrative at every opportunity. But as this budget will reveal, we are firmly in the grasp and belly of united efforts to reignite Gauteng's economy, to create jobs and meeting the basic needs of our people. The budget is geared towards supporting the key and strategic priorities, of which the first one is around acting together with all in our community to defeat the coronavirus. Secondly, to place our economy on a path of renewal and recovery in order to create jobs, help to reduce unemployment and poverty, as well as closing gap of inequalities. In the words of Ben Okri, we have capacity to create new order, to overcome our setback, to endure the journey of recovery, transform status quo, to love and show compassion to the most vulnerable and the poor, which is what makes us greater than our suffering. We will not relent to the pain, misery, and calamity visited upon by the socio-economic situation that is precipitated by COVID-19, nor mask the incompetence, corruption, or greed. We can and will be able to still rise upwards as we are still here in order to create a better world and face our raw realities and still survive. We believe that the lessons learned during the pandemic will inform the delivery of faster, more efficient and effective services. This is critical, taking into consideration the diminished provincial fiscal envelope, coupled with the rise in the need for services by communities. Honorable members, expenditure on COVID-19 accelerated the fiscal deterioration that is already underway in our country. That is why Minister Tito Mboweni outlined a 5-year fiscal consolidation plan that supports the economy, job creation, when presented to National Budget to Parliament last month. These measures are necessary to narrow the budget deficit, currently standing at 14% of GDP, and to stabilize debt within the next 5 years. These measures are not meant to be carried out in isolation, and it is expected that, if necessary, reforms are also implemented. These measures will support economic growth rather than continuing with current trend of spending that is funded by more borrowing and higher taxation, which are simply not sustainable anymore. Therefore, our budget is based on the following key principles: to ensure that we spend to the fiscal pressures faced by government and contribute to fiscal consolidation measures. A compulsory baseline reduction due to the 3-year wage freeze on salary increases for public servants, additional reductions to compensation of employees, support government's 5-year fiscal consolidation stance to reduce the budget deficit, reduction reductions to goods and services, out of fiscal consolidation measures to stabilize public debt and ensure fiscal sustainability, reprioritization to resource the Gauteng Provincial Government COVID-19 response plan, realignment and reprioritization of the existing baseline to deliver on the adjusted GGT 2030 plan, shift of funding from consumption to investment to stimulate economic growth, protection of constitutional mandate programs and statutory obligations with efficiencies and reforms in operational modalities of these programs, improve management of the personnel budget, capacity of departments to absorb and effectively utilize resources, readiness of departments to implement and capacity to deliver on infrastructure projects. Honorable members, as a result of fiscal consolidation measures, the provincial equitable share allocations to the province will be reduced over the next 3 years. In response, we will look at various ways to enhance our and 149 billion in 2023-2024 financial year. Madam Speaker, let me explain how we are funding our 4 key priorities. A total of 5.9 billion in the new money has been allocated over the 2021 MTF, the bulk of which will be focusing on defeating the COVID-19 pandemic, and for which the Gauteng Provincial Department of Health will be receiving 2.8 billion, largely once-off allocations. The existing baseline for medicine will also be boosted by 624 million over the MTF, while funding has also been allocated for the data capturers necessary to help facilitate improved performance information management, as well as ensure timely performance tracking and management at the coal face. Consideration has also been given to the vaccine rollout, which will be resourced through an injection of nearly 565 million in conditional grant funding. The Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs will receive a once-off amount of 20 million for the ward-based COVID-19 response committees, which is carried through from a similar amount allocated in the 2020 Special Adjustment Budget. Similarly, a once-off allocation of 15 million will be made to the Office of the Premier to provide the continuation of the contract of the learners that are staffing the COVID-19 call center hotline, which is an integral part of the response to the pandemic. Reigniting the Gauteng economy cannot be emphasized, cannot be enough to be overemphasized rather. Indeed, Honorable Premier, he dwelt much at length in his State of the Province address, pointing out the Gauteng City region is taking a lead in the implementation of the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan announced by President Cyril Ramaphosa. This can be seen in the continued focus on high growth priority sectors and infrastructure investment projects that will be instrumental in unlocking the transformation, modernization, and reindustrialization of the different corridors and districts of our Gauteng City region. Over the 2021 MTF, the Gauteng Department of Economic Development will be receiving an amount of 153 million, being Gauteng Provincial Government's contribution to the operational cost for the Tshwane Automotive Special Economic Zone, which the Honorable Premier described as a prime example of our vision of spatial and economic transformation and integrated of township enterprises, Black-owned, women-owned and youth-owned businesses into supply chains of big corporates. With special economic zones identified as a linchpin of the reigniting of the Gauteng economy, a once-off allocation has been made to the OR Tambo Industrial Development Zone, which is a key component of the Ekurhuleni Special Economic Zone, towards the funding of design for the bulk services. This will add further impetus to the realization of the vision so eloquently articulated by Premier David Makhura. In addition to the new money, this is already 14.4 billion allocated in 2021-2022 towards economic services, and 44.2 billion over the MTF allocated to the Departments of Roads and Transport, Economic Development, and Agriculture and Rural Development. Roads and transport, through investment in economic infrastructure and regulation of road users, is responsible for the development and maintenance of a sustainable road infrastructure network, and not only contributes to increased economic growth and enhanced quality of life in Gauteng, but also act as a catalyst for opening up the Gauteng City region to development. Agriculture and rural development is tasked with a number of responsibilities ranging from harnessing to maximizing the economic potential of the province's agricultural sector and ensuring food security for all. Economic development will continue with the revitalization of township economies, proactively linking communities to economic opportunities by increasing the participation of small, medium, and micro enterprises and cooperatives in the province's mainstream economy, as well as promoting and attracting trade and investment to the economy. Honorable Speaker, since the dawn of our democracy, the infrastructure investment of the Gauteng Provincial Government remains a fundamental pillar to deliver services to our people. Infrastructure is not only directly contributes to an improved in the standard of living for communities, it reduces poverty levels and addresses inequalities, but it also is a key driver in creating an environment that is conducive to economic development, growth, and job creation. Over the 2021 MTF, Gauteng Provincial Government will be investing a total of 35.3 billion in social and economic infrastructure. Of this amount, 34.3 billion goes to the Departments of Human Settlement, Health, Education, Roads and Transport, while the remaining 1 billion is allocated to the following departments: the Department of Social Development, Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, Sports, Arts, Culture and Creation, and Infrastructure Development. Of these amounts, 13.8 billion will be devoted to new or replacement of infrastructure, while 20.4 billion goes towards the maintenance, refurbishment and upgrades of the existing infrastructure. Projects cutting across of the 5 corridors are allocated the largest share of the allocation, which ranges at 15.3 billion or 43%, and is mainly for the maintenance programs to ensure that the condition of the provincial government infrastructure assets, such as buildings and roads, is preserved. The Central Development Corridor receives the second largest allocation at 6.4 billion or 18%, and the remaining 13.7 billion, which is 39%, is shared by the eastern, northern, southern, and western corridors of our province. Over and above, the allocated infrastructure budget, which is Gauteng Provincial Treasury, will continue to consider projects that would be ready for delivery on the ground post-tabling of the budget. This is to ensure that the greater efficiency on spending is attained and that more and better outputs and outcomes are received with fewer resources. This process should be anchored in evidence-based budgeting for all infrastructure projects, and departments are required to provide the required portfolio of evidence to demonstrate that an infrastructure project in planning is ready to proceed without delays, cost overruns that are not compromising quality standards of our province. This approach reinforces the principle of protecting the infrastructure funding. Thus, in cases where the portfolio of evidence submitted by the departments demonstrate that projects are not ready for implementation, then the funds are ring-fenced and are only allocated when the department is ready to deliver. Departments are therefore really encouraged to place a dedicated focus on undertaking that all the required planning processes are done, provide the portfolio of evidence to enable Gauteng Provincial Treasury to allocate more funding for infrastructure. This requires that departments again undertake due diligence during planning phases, apply credible prioritization criteria, develop business cases that adequately address all the planning issues, and that the capacity and the capability to implement effectively and effectively exists. Departments should also re-examine the prioritization criteria to enable the maximum benefit to be derived from the scarce resources and ensure that there is equity in terms of 5 development corridors. Noting that the majority of the existing projects are in the northern, central, and eastern development corridors. So we call upon all departments to consider prioritizing infrastructure projects in the southern development corridor and western development corridor to unblock development in these areas and create jobs. Over 2020-2021 MTF, Gauteng Provincial Treasury will place more focus on the following: infrastructure completed or handed over projects, but infrastructure cannot be used due to outstanding occupancy certificates, outstanding contractual agreements, and non-commissioning, which are the areas that we are going to make sure that we focus on. Reducing the cost of infrastructure, rolling out infrastructure performance reviews of all departments, and improving the credibility of information on jobs created through the infrastructure projects, as well as monitoring thereof. Honorable members, we continue to use our massive procurement muscle as well as our vast infrastructure spending as strategic levers to drive meaningful transformation, empowerment, job creation, and economic inclusion, including the participation of SMMEs, cooperatives, and township enterprises in the mainstream economy. Closely following on this is the resourcing towards recalibrating the social policy to improve educational and health outcomes, fight crime, and protect the most vulnerable sections of the population against urban poverty and hunger. The Gauteng Department of Education also receives national funding of 2.7 billion over the MTF. This is also informed by the critical need to ensure that the children entering the education system will get the necessary grounding and skills, without which they would live suboptimal lives in their adulthood. These resources will go towards increasing the per capita learner subsidy in both no-fee and fee-paying schools, as well as subsidies to independent schools, which move in lockstep with those to public ordinary schools. The new normal brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic has made it more and more necessary that we adapt our ways of doing things. A critical component of this is through the use of ICT to deliver curriculum, and over the MTF, a total of 1.2 billion will be allocated to augment the existing resources in the Department of Education baseline towards ensuring that ICT learning starts being rolled out to our lower grades. The Department of Social Development will be receiving a total of 84 million towards continuing the provision of care and protection of the homeless in collaboration with municipalities and other stakeholders. This money is also there to assist the department to continuously implement and monitor the implementation of long-term sustainability plans for these shelters, which are a responsibility to the province and we have undertaken in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The Gauteng Department of Community Safety will be receiving a total of 92 million over the MTF, being resources aimed at augmenting the department's operational budget, together with a one-off allocation towards the infrastructure-related elements of the e-policing strategy. That is an integral part of the GGT 2030 priority, addressing safety, social cohesion, and food security. A once-off allocation of 66 million will be made towards Gauteng Department of Human Settlement to provide relief from accruals that have had a debilitating effect on the department's drive to realize the GGT 2030 priority in integrated human settlement and land release. Already sitting in the baseline for the departments that will be at the forefront of calibrating social policy, these are the following departments: health, education, social development, human settlement, and community safety. They will be receiving a total amount of 122 billion in 2001-2002 financial year and nearly 373 billion over the MTF. Allocated to these departments will be at the forefront of the social policy initiatives of the Gauteng provincial government. Address reiterated the imperatives of a caring, capable, competent, and ethical government that can deal with the development imperatives, especially during pandemics, disasters, and systematic crises. At the heart of this priority, from the Office of the Premier, the Department of Cooperative Governance, Traditional Affairs, and Gauteng Provincial, the mandate of this department ranges from promotion of good governance, stewardship of financial matters, mainstreaming of programs focus on GOD projects, to support and streaming of government's programs focusing on gender-based violence, supporting the rights of women, the rights of youth, senior citizens, disability, military veterans, the LGBTIQ plus community. Cumulatively, the allocation to the departments that are at the fourth good governance is 2.1 billion in 2021-2022 and approximately 6.2 billion over the MTF. Honorable members, to achieve inclusive growth and sustainable development, we must improve financial management, promote transparency and public accountability. However, areas of concerns have been identified by the Office of the Auditor General, and we must attend to them urgently without fail. The outbreak of COVID-19 severely affected revenue collection in our municipalities. This has deepened service delivery challenges in local communities. So I urge all departments and state-owned enterprises to pay their rates and taxes to municipalities. As provincial government, we have a debt management committee that has managed to support the departments and municipalities to ensure that that management committee that has managed to ensure that they support the municipalities and ensuring that our debt obligations for these services are dealt with as current as possible, as soon as possible. We cannot allow one sphere of government to owe another. We continue to strengthen our capacity to fight fraud and corruption and promote transparency in the provincial government. In this regard, the last week we published the 6th COVID-19 expenditure disclosure report that is detailing how much money we spent in procuring goods and services that are related to the fight against the pandemic by each department. The reports also include the names of the service providers who did business with the state and how much did they charge. We release these reports every month and publish them on the provincial government portal for scrutiny by the public. We have made significant progress to decentralize the open tender function with the aim of improving efficiency in the implementation of the projects. Next month, we will commence with the phase 3 of this process, which entails the decentralization of the open tender process to 4 departments and 6 entities. Those departments are the Department of Community Safety, Agriculture and Rural Development, E-Government and Provincial Treasury. The entities Enterprise Propeller, Gambling, Infrastructure Financing Agency, Film Commission, Partnership Fund and Tourism Authority. Since its inception, the open tender function has awarded 177 projects that are valued at an amount of 29 billion. Furthermore, the Forensic Services Unit migrated from Provincial Treasury to the Office of the Premier at the beginning of this financial year to consolidate and corruption in the province and services, and we must work together to eliminate this in the provincial government. Honorable members, I must emphasize that all accounting officers in the province that must be part of exercising prudent financial management and good governance, that is paying suppliers on time for services that are being rendered. When you pay a supplier, you are not doing them a favor. When you are doing, what you are doing is to honor an obligation that the state has to do to the suppliers out there. There is nothing that is disheartening than getting a call from a desperate business owner informing you that they have not been paid by our departments. So I would like to call on all my colleagues in the Executive Council to monitor this area very carefully and weekly and monthly on weekly and monthly basis, and hold their accounting and financial responsible if valid ins are not paid on time. Government is one of the largest procurers of goods and services in the country. If we do not pay our suppliers on time for valid invoices and they have valid invoices submitted, we negatively affect their cash flow, which is a sensitive area in any business, and in the process of effectively destroying their livelihoods and the jobs of the people that they employ in these difficult times. In conclusion, Madam Speaker, as the stewardship of the public purse, we owe it to the future generations to leave them weighed down by onerous debt that will make it difficult to fulfill the compact that we have had with the people of Gauteng. I urge provincial government departments to draw valuable lessons from the COVID-19 pandemic as a way of examining the way we do things currently. Strive for efficiency and cut wastage, which will stretch every rand further. Madam Speaker, our unity as members of this House is paramount to a precondition of a collective success, particularly here in Gauteng, on this economy for which it must see efficient growth in order to realize the future that we are all yearning for. The unity I'm talking about is not in the absence of critique of the present or dissenting voices or alternatives, but it means maturity to face each other honestly and openly about what is in the best interest of our province and her people. It means coalescing around their needs to eradicate their social and economic vulnerability from fault lines exposed by COVID-19 pandemic in order to create a successful Gauteng province that best represent our passion and our pride. With those words, honorable members, let me take this opportunity to express my appreciation to Honorable Premier David Makhura for his leadership and continued guidance to ensure we use public funds to respond decisively to the needs of the citizens of Gauteng during these difficult times. Colleagues in the Executive Council and the Premier's Budget Committee, I want to thank you for your ongoing cooperation and participation in often difficult times and robust engagements. I know that sometimes it's not easy to all of us, but we value your input as it guided us in crafting a budget that balances the need for fiscal consolidation and supporting economic development and job creation that is in your heart. Our appreciation goes again to the Finance Portfolio Committee and the Standing Committee on Public Accounts under the capable leadership of Honorable Joe Mpisi and Honorable Sochaile Kanyile, respectively, for their insight and oversight on all budget and financial management. Thanks to you, colleagues. My appreciation again goes to Acting HOD, Mr. Mncedisi Vilakazi, and the entire Treasury team for their hard work and dedication to efficient management of public funds. Ngiyabulela kakhulu, Mr. Vilakazi. Lastly, I want to thank you,
Introduction of the Gauteng Provincial Third Adjustment Appropriation Bill G002-2021 for the 2020-2021 financial year.
Honorable Rally Huku again.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wish to introduce the Gauteng Provincial Appropriation Bill 2021-2022 financial year in terms of rules 192 subsection 2, read with rule 219 subsection 1 and subsection 2 of the Gauteng Provincial Legislature standing rules. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable MEC, that concludes the business for the day. I wish to announce that our next sitting will be on the 16th of March, next Tuesday, at 10 hours. The House is now adjourned. Thank you.
Happy birthday, Brazos.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. The speaker is still in the house. Happy birthday, Brazos. Now I can say happy birthday to you. Oh, thank you.